I have a friend. His name's Andy Burris, and his son, when he's 15, he got a pill on Snapchat and thought it was a Percocet. Took it on FaceTime in front of his friends and died right there in front of his friends. And when he told me the story, a story like that you just can't unhear, and it makes you think about your own kids and all your neighbors' kids, the kids in the neighborhood. And then he invited me to a rally that they were having in Leavenworth, and I got to hear story after story after story, and I couldn't, like I said, you just can't unhear it, and you have to do something. Another friend that I met through this, Amber, she the first thing she came to me with is like, hey, we are one of two states where if the cops come and respond to a fentanyl overdose or poisoning call, they have to arrest everybody who's got fentanyl on them. And then we're only one of two states where we don't have a Good Samaritan law, where if they call and they stay on the scene and they assist the first responders, that they don't have to worry about going to jail. And I was new to this whole thing. So why is that a problem? And so people are just leaving people to die, or they're dumping them places. And so I started talking to law enforcement in Leavenworth, where I live, and it's all the time. Most of the time when they get calls, the person's dying alone when they show up. And so we were able to get that passed this year, and that's the first of many things we need to get done. It was kind of a negotiated settlement. I didn't get everything that I wanted. What I would like to have had happen is, somebody calls and they stay on the scene. No matter what the rap sheet looks like, no matter what the quantity, they, as long as they call and they stay while the person's getting assistance, they're immune from prosecution. The way it turned out, because we had to get the police on board, understandably, we don't want to. We don't want to be at odds with law enforcement. That's the people that have to be on the scene in sometimes dangerous situations. It doesn't include dealer quantities, which I think is reasonable. So if, and that's not really defined, it's up to the discretion of the law enforcement officer. But if somebody's dealing this poison, we need to be able to take them off the street. So I understood that. One I wasn't as big a fan of is if somebody's on parole, they're not immune they can be picked up and taken to jail. And you got to figure a lot of folks that are going to be in the situation where they're watching somebody die of fentanyl, there's probably a good chance they've had run-ins with the law before. So that one I would like to come back and correct in the next session, but at least we got this one on the books. And so the way it works is if people are together doing drugs, and one of them, either intentionally or unintentionally ingests fentanyl, because a lot of times people don't know they're taking fentanyl when they take it, and they're dying, and the people there call for help, call 911 or whatever for help, and they stay on the scene till first responders arrive, and they're helpful, then they won't be taken to jail even if they have drugs on them. Because that's what happens. What happened before is if they had drugs on them, they'd call 911 and then they'd split and let that person die alone, or they'd take them and they'd dump them someplace. Right. We're still coming to grips with just how bad a problem we have. I'm on the Kansas Security Committee, and we had a meeting, a hearing last year, and Kansas Bureau of Investigations told us they picked up enough fentanyl last year to kill every man, woman, and child 5 times over in the state of Kansas. That's what they got. So how much is on the street, And I don't think anybody was prepared for this deluge of fentanyl that's hit, every city and every town and every, little town in Kansas, and we're just trying to catch up. We're trying to do triage and, fix the things we can fix and try to respond to it. Another thing that I think we're going to try to do next year, because we're a part-time legislature, we're out of session right now, is making sure that law enforcement officers have naloxone. Some of them don't want to carry it because they're worried about liability. Some of these small towns, they just can't afford it. So there's a lot of facets to the problem, but they need to be able to do something, not just watch somebody die when they come to a scene and there's somebody overdosing.
Right.
When I was running on lowering taxes and getting business back and getting people back in my town. I didn't know I was going to be, I didn't know I was going to be doing. And I remember when I testified, I actually said, if you'd told me a year ago I was going to be standing up here asking you to pass a law that makes people immune from prosecution for drug offenses, I wouldn't have believed you, but here I am. And it's in Leavenworth last year, they had 48 fentanyl calls in Little Leavenworth, and 11 of those were fatalities. 11, and it's right in my neighborhood. I live up in North Leavenworth, and it's right in my neighborhood. It's all around me, and I didn't, I wasn't attuned to the issue. I didn't, nobody had talked to me about it before. But once I found out about it, and I really started digging into it, it's. I mean, just imagine in your town if 11 people died of something in a year. I mean, that would be, that'd be all over the newspaper. It would be all anybody talked about until they figured out how to stop it from happening. And it's young people too, I mean, it's our kids, but it's not. And I just don't understand it. Why is it not all we're talking about? I just can't wrap my head around it.